For years, Tiffany Haddish has been known as the loudest laugh in the room, a woman whose humor, confidence, and unapologetic personality made her one of Hollywood's most recognizable stars. But what the world didn't expect was that behind the jokes, behind the spotlight, and behind the red carpet glamour, Tiffany was quietly preparing for a moment unlike anything she had ever done before. Not another movie premiere, not another stand-up special, not another headline about her love life. This time, she walked down the aisle alone. Yet somehow, she has never looked more complete. According to Tiffany, this wasn't a stunt. It wasn't a publicity move. It wasn't an attempt to shock the internet, even though it certainly did. What she revealed was something much deeper, much more emotional, and surprisingly vulnerable, a wedding ceremony she designed entirely for herself, held in Africa, surrounded by the kind of peace and reflection she says she has never truly given herself before. No groom, no partner, no expectations, just Tiffany, standing before her own reflection, promising to honor the one relationship she says she ignored for far too long, the relationship she has with herself. In her new Peacock docuseries Tiffany Haddish Goes Off, she opens the door to a journey many didn't realize she was on. The cameras follow her through Africa, laughing with friends, wrestling with the past, and confronting truths about her personal life, love life, and emotional baggage. But the moment no one saw coming was the ceremony where Tiffany decided she didn't need a man, a ring from someone else, or a traditional romance to feel complete. She created her own version of commitment, rooted in self-accountability, healing, and the desire to finally prioritize herself after years of giving more love than she ever received. What makes this moment so striking is how honestly she explains it. Tiffany admits she did it because she wanted a celebration, she wanted joy, she wanted a moment that wasn't tied to heartbreak, rejection, or the pressure of needing a partner to define her worth. She says she married herself because for the first time she was ready to make the kind of promises to herself she had spent years waiting for someone else to make. And in her words, there was no point pretending anymore. If you're going to keep any promises in life, the promises you make to yourself are the main ones. This wasn't about ego, it was about healing, and healing has never come easily for Tiffany Haddish, because behind the laughter, her journey through relationships has been anything but simple. People remember the headlines, the jokes, the red carpet smiles, but Tiffany remembers something different, the emotional fallout, the love that didn't last, and the public breakup with rapper Common that left her feeling blindsided. She later revealed that the ending wasn't mutual at all. According to Tiffany, Common ended the relationship abruptly, over the phone, insisting the connection had run its course. For a woman who had opened her heart, opened her life, and opened her future to someone she believed she loved, the moment left a mark. But Tiffany didn't stay in that place of heartbreak. She pushed forward, stepping back into dating, exploring new relationships, and giving second chances to the possibility of love. Yet none of it lasted. And as she moved into a new season of her life, she began realizing a truth she had been avoiding for years, that the one relationship she could no longer afford to neglect was the one she had with herself. That realization is what led her to Africa, not simply for a show, not for a photo moment, but for a chapter of rediscovery. Surrounded by friends who supported her journey, Tiffany began asking herself the questions she had spent years ignoring. Who am I outside of the applause? What do I need beyond the expectations of others? And what would it look like if for once, she chose herself before choosing anyone else? Her answer was the ceremony that left millions stunned. Wearing her own wedding ring, designed not to symbolize a promise from another person, but a promise to her own growth, Tiffany stood in front of her reflection and committed to living honestly, boldly, and without apology. She acknowledged her flaws, she confronted her habits, she forgave old versions of herself, and she chose to finally walk into a chapter where her happiness was not dependent on a relationship, a man, a title, or public approval. What makes Tiffany's self-marriage so fascinating is how it breaks the traditional narrative around love and commitment. Society offers women a single storyline: find romance, fall in love, get married, live happily. But Tiffany Haddish turned that narrative on its head. She didn't reject love, she redefined it. She didn't deny relationships, she reframed their purpose. She didn't close her heart, she opened it inward. And here's the surprising twist: ever since she married herself, she says her dating life actually improved. Tiffany joked that men became more interested the moment they heard she was taken. She explained that when she wears her wedding ring, people assume she's off the market, which ironically makes her more magnetic. It's a playful contradiction that only Tiffany could deliver with humor and honesty. She says being married to herself has made her more confident, more selective, and more grounded. She is no longer dating from a place of loneliness or seeking validation from someone else. Instead, she dates from a place of strength. This new commitment to self-love may be unconventional, but it isn't unprecedented. Singer Maya famously married herself in 2020 as part of an empowering message in her music video The Truth. And like Maya, Tiffany isn't suggesting she never wants love again. She's not rejecting companionship. She simply refuses to wait for someone else to make her feel complete. Because at the end of the day, Tiffany Haddish has lived enough life to know that relationships can fail, promises can fade, love can change, but the one constant, the one presence she will always live with, is herself, and she decided it was time to honor that relationship first. This wasn't a stunt. It wasn't a joke. It was a woman choosing to treat herself with the same commitment she once reserved for others, a woman healing from heartbreak, a woman reclaiming her identity, a woman refusing to settle for anything less than the love she deserves, even if it begins with her own reflection. And maybe that's why Tiffany's self-marriage has captured so much attention. Not because it's strange, not because it's dramatic, but because it speaks to something deeper, something many people quietly long for, the courage to choose yourself in a world that constantly demands you choose others first. Tiffany Haddish didn't walk away from love, she walked toward a version of love that finally included herself. What makes Tiffany Haddish's self-marriage so striking is not the moment itself, but everything that led her there. The emotional history, the heartbreaks, the pressure of fame, the spiritual pull of Africa, and the unexpected reactions from Hollywood once the news broke. It wasn't a random decision. It wasn't a comedian's gimmick. It was the final step of a journey she had quietly been walking for years, long before cameras followed her across the continent, and long before she slipped a wedding ring onto her own finger. People who know Tiffany intimately say the Africa trip transformed her in ways she didn't anticipate. She didn't go there for a wedding, a storyline, or a viral moment. She went because she needed space, the kind of space that doesn't exist in Los Angeles, where every restaurant, studio, and sidewalk carries memories from her past. Africa gave her something she hadn't felt in a long time: silence. A silence so deep that she finally had to confront the parts of herself she had been avoiding, the pain she had pushed aside, the heartbreak she laughed through, the insecurities she hid behind a punchline. Her journey stretched through villages, markets, and quiet retreats, where she walked barefoot through red soil, learning traditions that felt older than her pain. Friends traveling with her noticed the shift. Her laughter was still there, loud and unapologetic, but behind it was something softer, calmer, more grounded. They watched her sit with healers, listen to elders, and reconnect with a version of herself she thought Hollywood had stolen from her. By the time she discussed marrying herself, it didn't sound outrageous. It sounded like clarity, like the first honest chapter she had written for herself in years. And then came the ceremony. Not glamorous, not flashy, but deeply symbolic. Traditional fabrics, hand-carved jewelry, local musicians who didn't know her as a celebrity, but simply as Sister Tiffany. Her friends stood around her not as bridesmaids, but as witnesses to a rebirth. She made vows that were painfully honest, promises to stop abandoning herself for love, to stop shrinking to make others comfortable, to stop repeating cycles that left her broken. She vowed to be kinder to herself, gentler with her dreams, and more protective of her heart. For the first time, the ring on her hand didn't represent a hope for someone else's loyalty, it represented her own. But what the world didn't see was how much heartbreak built the path to that moment. Tiffany has always been candid about the chaos of her childhood: homelessness, instability, trauma that left scars deeper than any relationship could heal. She grew up learning how to survive, not how to receive love, and that survival instinct followed her into adulthood. She found success, she found fame, but she never found the kind of love she gave so freely to others. Her relationship with Common was the breaking point. What she hoped would be her grown woman love story ended with a phone call that felt more like a dismissal than a discussion. She wasn't angry, she was exhausted. Exhausted from giving, exhausted from hoping, exhausted from being the kind of woman who makes everyone laugh while silently wondering why she keeps ending up alone. Even after that heartbreak, she tried again. Dating apps, casual relationships, moments of connection that faded almost as quickly as they began. By 2024, the situation with investor Marvin Jones seemed promising, until it fizzled the same way. Not in scandal, not in betrayal, just in silence, the kind that reminds you that even at your strongest lonely seasons can still break you. So when Tiffany says marrying herself was about accountability, she means it. She was tired of chasing the version of love the world told her she needed. She wanted the version she had never given herself. And as the news spread across Hollywood, the reactions were exactly what you would expect. Some people laughed, some people applauded, some people wrote think pieces about self-love and independence. But those closest to her, the ones who knew the truth behind the headlines, understood that Tiffany wasn't mocking marriage. She was reclaiming it. She wasn't rejecting men. She was refusing to continue building her identity around relationships that never honored her. Her comedian friends joked with her, but with admiration. Industry insiders called it on-brand, but also unexpectedly profound. And while the internet debated whether self-marriage was empowering or bizarre,
Tiffany remained unbothered, because for once, her life wasn't being shaped by opinions, by heartbreak, by approval, or by expectation. It was shaped by a decision rooted in healing, a decision no critic, no ex, no headline could undo. Even more surprising was how the ceremony shifted something inside her. She began speaking differently about love, not with bitterness, but with curiosity, not with cynicism, but with caution. She said men started approaching her differently once she began wearing her ring, calling it an amplifier of confidence. She didn't need attention. She didn't need validation. She didn't need permission to shine, and that self-assurance became magnetic. She even joked that she was getting more interest after announcing she was married. But beneath the humor was something real. People are drawn to someone who knows their worth, and Tiffany Haddish finally stepped into hers. This ceremony wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. A beginning of a chapter where she no longer negotiates her value, a chapter where she no longer apologizes for her boundaries, a chapter where she no longer sacrifices her peace to avoid being alone, a chapter where she is whole without needing to be completed, because Tiffany's story isn't about marrying herself, it's about finally loving herself in a world that taught her to love everyone else first.